Welcome to Reality Bites, and hello to all my friends at the Australian Hairdressing Council. I'm Anthony Whitaker from Grow My Salon Business, and in some capacity I'm involved with hairdressing in several countries. And the one thing that keeps coming up is that there's a problem finding hairdressers with the technical ability to cut hair. It's not a localized Australian issue, and it's not due to the training systems that exist in any one country. It's very much a global issue. And to understand the reason why, I think you simply need to look around the salon at your team and maybe even look in the mirror, and you'll see that for the last 20 odd years there's been a predominance of long hair in fashion, and so there is simply a lack of demand for stylists to do shorter haircuts. Coupled with the fact that the so-called unisex salon of the 70s, 80s and 90s has now largely diverged back into being either a barber's or a predominantly female salon. And then you can see why the many so-called ladies hairdressers that have come through in the last 10 years don't have the cutting skills that are required. It's because all the focus has been on long hair, straightening irons or stylers, and the colouring side of the industry. As a result, the level of expertise and finishing on longer hair is way ahead of where it was when I started cutting hair. And likewise, the ability of hairdressers with colour has also dramatically improved over the last 10 years. But like everything, this trend will change, and there will be a return to many more women having shorter hair. But that change is not something that you or I can control. No one controls that. It's society and the ever-changing fashions that influence it, whether it's because of the economy, the politics, the changing of generational attitudes, new technology, or because of a few high-profile musicians, actors, models or celebrities, etc. Or more likely, it'll be a combination of all of the above, and then shorter hair for women will become more mainstream again. In a post on the AHC Facebook page recently, there was a lot of comment about the poor technical cutting skills being the fault of the TAFE system or the changes to apprenticeships. Now, I'm a bit out of touch with the TAFE system in Australia, but by and large, I always thought that they were good and that they served a very definite purpose that, to be honest with you, just doesn't exist in a lot of countries. But I think that the real problem is that salon owners think that it's the TAFE's job, or whoever your training provider is, that it's their responsibility to train your staff to be technically competent to the standards that you expect, for them to be the hairdressers that you need. You see, I don't see it as their job. I see it as yours. And to be really blunt, you shouldn't have opened a salon if you aren't prepared to do that training. Can you imagine if Gordon Ramsay opened a restaurant and expected the TAFE system to provide him with all these skilled, qualified chefs? Or if the Ritz-Carlton were to open a hotel and expected the TAFE system to provide them with the ready, skilled hospitality staff? Of course not. So why should hairdressing be any different? It's your job, and you should have a bespoke, documented training program and systems and budgets that you put into place to train your staff to the standards that you need them to be at. And that is where the real problem is, because very few salons have anything like that. And then what the problem is, they then go and blame the system for not producing the people that they need. So I work with many salons in many countries, and very few of them have any sort of written down training program. But I believe that if you're going to open a salon, that having your own documented internal training program should be compulsory. You know, the secret behind the two most successful brands in hairdressing, they meaning Sassoon and Toni and Guy, is that they have a strong internal training program and they implement it. There's no secret. Not only does that attract staff, but it also attracts clients, and it helps you build the business, and your business stands for something. Your staff will come and go, but if you have an internal training program in place, then your brand builds up a reputation for consistent standards and a quality of work, regardless of who does the client's hair. So, don't wait for the TAFE or the manufacturers to do it for you. It's not their job, it's yours. And it's really not that hard. So, where do you start? Well, I think that cutting hair is a lot like cooking. There are fundamental principles at work and certain classic dishes in cooking that have the foundation of everything. And I think it's the same with hair cutting. You see, with cutting hair, there are only 4 things that you can do. It's either one length, layered, graduated, or texturized. And every haircut is either one of those techniques or a combination of 2 or 3 of them. Now, it's good to learn those techniques in their purest form and then learn to put them together in different ways. And inevitably, there will end up being 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever that are the epitome of each of those techniques. Now, some people are creative and they can use those techniques like a toolbox to draw on and approach every client as an individual. But the reality is that most hairdressers are not that creative. They're good technicians. And there's nothing wrong with that. The good technician categorizes each client into some sort of specific haircut that they've mastered, and perhaps they have half a dozen or so haircuts that everyone ends up getting a variation of. Now, again, back to my cooking analogy. I can cook half a dozen things really well. I have a recipe for them and I have mastered that recipe, and that is what you're going to get. But my wife Melinda, she'll open the fridge, and where I see absolutely nothing, she will see a feast. And she throws a few things together and they turn into a fabulous meal in no time at all. She's creative in the kitchen. I'm not, but either way, you'll get a good meal. It's just different ways of working. It's the same with hairdressing. So where do you start to develop your own training program? First thing is to determine what the skills are that you want people to have and to write them down. Then break that list down into blocks of time, let's say 3 monthly blocks of time. The next step is to allocate those skills to different months. So, for example, you might go month 1 to 3. You might cover greeting the client, shampoo procedure, product knowledge, and consultations. Then maybe month 3 to 6, you might cover blow drying long 1-length hair with a paddle brush, with a round brush, with a Denman brush, and using straightening irons. Month 6 to 9, you might have cutting 1-length hair below the shoulder, and also cutting and blow drying 1-length bobs above the shoulder. Month 9 to 12, you might have cutting long layers on different textures of hair. I'm sure you're starting to get the idea here. The key thing is that you have a structured training program and that you break it down into a series of, say, 3 monthly modules. And at the end of every module, you give them an assessment, and if they pass, they progress to the next stage. If they don't, then they repeat it. See, when it comes to haircuts, I suggest, though, that you start on mannequins, because that way you're very focused on the technique and not on the client telling you that she's in a rush or that, not too short because she's getting married or whatever it is, yeah? On a mannequin, you learn to master the technique first. Once that's mastered on a mannequin, the sectioning, the patterns, tension, the way you comb it, and then you progress to live models, all the issues with real people will come in time. But the important thing is that you can get people through a structured system that allows you to have them on the floor with a column of their own within a maximum of a 2-year period. You simply can't afford to have people not producing dollars within that time frame. So is all this hard? Of course it is. You didn't expect owning a successful salon to be easy, did you? But if you're not prepared to do that, then just accept what it is. Or work for someone who is doing it, and then that'll be a win for everybody. But is it rewarding when you do it yourself and get it right? Damn right it is. You can do it. Remember, the easiest way to get started is simply to start. So that was Reality Bites. Good luck with your training program. And if you want to find out more about what I do, or to order books or subscribe to our podcast or the 2-Minute Salon Manager series, then visit me at growmysalonbusiness.com. In the meantime, have a great week.